And I think his perceived arrogance around him being cast, people are also translating that to the character of Evan. To be honest, I didn't really like it. Hi everybody, how are you? I hope that you're very, very well. So, everybody is talking about the Dear Evan Hansen movie, and you know me, I love to stick my oar in, I love to throw in my 2 cents, share my opinion, so I'm gonna do that today. So even though the movie isn't out until the end of October in the UK, I managed to get a stream of it, and I wanted to share my opinions. And I have lots of them. Lots. The reviews of the film so far have been pretty awful. It's got like 32% on Rotten Tomatoes from reviewers. I wanted to see if it really is as bad as everyone says it is. Anyone who's watched my channel for a while knows that I'm very on the fence about Dear Evan Hansen. I listened to the soundtrack, fell in love with it, saw it on Broadway, didn't really like it, saw it in the West End, liked it again, read the book, loved the book. Then I saw the film. The whole story of Dear Evan Hansen splits people, and listen, me being a Libra, we all know I can't make a decision on anything. So that's why I'm very back and forth on it. So this isn't going to be a total bashing of the film, but it also won't be a complete rave. I will talk about Ben Platt. I will say I have a hot take, and I think it is a very good hot take, but I'll get some of the other stuff out of the way first. So for anyone who's been living under a rock for the last few years and doesn't know the story of Dear Evan Hansen, I'll let you know. It's about this boy called Dia. He gives everything. That's a RuPaul's Drag Race reference. No, it follows Evan, who is a senior in high school, and Evan suffers with depression and anxiety. His therapist has given him a task to basically write a letter to himself each day that says, today's gonna be a great day and here's why. And he writes this letter on a day that's gone particularly bad, and another boy at school, Connor Murphy, who is also suffering with mental health issues, sees the letter, sees that his sister's name is on it, and takes the letter. So in the next couple of days, we find out that Connor Murphy has died by suicide, and he had the note from Evan Hansen on him. So his family, they presume, because this letter is basically like, Dear Evan Hansen, this is a bad day, blah blah blah, from your dearest and best friend, me. And so they think that Connor has written the letter to Evan. Evan is like, no, I didn't write that. They're like, no, it's okay, you can tell us. He ends up saying yes, then writes all these fake emails to kind of show he had a relationship with this boy who he didn't. So he ends up spending a lot of time with the family. He starts dating Connor's sister, and then in the end he ends up getting found out. I did a video on Dear Evan Hansen about 1.5 years ago about the story and the character and Evan, so if you are interested in kind of the backstory and everything about it, then I'll leave that link down below. You might find it interesting. Okay, so let's get started with the movie. Straight up, do I think it's the worst musical movie ever made? Absolutely not. That Special Spot is Save for Cats 2019. But does it work as a film? No, not in the way that it's been done. The movie was directed by Stephen Chbosky, who is most known for writing and directing The Perks of Being a Wallflower. His background in musical theatre movies is that he wrote the screenplay for the Rent movie and the screenplay for Beauty and the Beast. And his view for Dear Evan Hansen was to like have it very real, which I think is ironic because it's ended up coming out so unreal to audiences. I think the thing is that when starting to make a movie musical, you need to decide, is the world musical or are just our characters musical? If that makes sense. Like, does everybody break out into song and dance, or is it just these people at these very heightened moments? To me, this film, it feels like it's just the characters who are musical, that they don't live in a musical world. I think that that is where a lot of the fundamental issues come from in this film. The whole thing, it kind of feels like a TV show that is normally a drama and it's having a musical episode, and there's no real reason for it to have a musical episode, they just wanted one. It feels weird when people start singing. I also think that that is why I prefer the book to the musical. I think that the story makes more sense as a play or a book than a musical. It kind of feels like it's a musical for no reason. Anyway, I know the show pretty well, so as as I'm watching it, I'm expecting the songs and I'm kind of ready for them. And I feel like people who aren't familiar with the material would be a bit taken aback, like, oh, this feels very disjointed, because there was kind of no preamble before any of the singing. It's like we're, say, half an hour into the movie, we've not heard the parents sing yet, and then Requiem starts and we see Zoe Murphy singing, and then we're seeing another shot of Amy Adams sat on a bed singing, and then we see the dad singing, but we haven't kind of been introduced to them as musical characters yet, so it feels weird that they're singing. Anybody Have a Map is the opening song of the musical, and I think that it was a really bad decision to cut that, because I think that it introduces the world as being musical and everybody being musical, rather than we have like 2 or 3 solos, I think, of Evan Hansen before we hear anybody else. And so it kind of feels like we're in Evan's world and he's the only one singing. Am I making sense? I don't know. Actual performance style of the songs is weird as well, because they're kind of talking and then songs will start and they perform them in kind of this half singing, half spoken style, which is a fine technique when used once or twice in a musical. But this is like pretty much every song starts like that. And there's also very little underscoring in the rest of the film. So when there is a song, it does feel like it's just come out of nowhere, because the rest of the film is so silent. I thought Caitlin Dever did a really good job in the film. I mean, I think she's a great actor anyway. She's so truthful, she's so real, and I think even though she doesn't have, say, the strongest voice, she really works as a character, because I believed everything she did. I'll get back to her and Ben a little later when I talk more about Ben Platt. I liked Sincerely Me. It's probably my favourite song in the show anyway. It felt fun and quirky, and like the audience was a part of the story, and I liked that. To be honest, I wasn't really feeling Connor as a character before. I didn't feel like we got enough of him to kind of connect to, and so I liked that he had a moment. I did think at the end of the song that Jared didn't need to be there. In the kind of flashback moments, we see that Evan and Connor are having fun together and Jared is kind of kicked out, so I didn't really feel the need for him to be there at the end of the song. It felt a bit like, why are you there? And I think it would have been more sobering to the fact that it was all made up and all imaginary if he wasn't there, and then at the end of the song it goes back to Evan and Jared sat in the room typing out the emails and making it all up. But that's a small thing. The thing with Dear Evan Hansen is that the music is lovely. The music is great, you know, it soars in all the right places. It's like very contemporary poppy musical theatre. It's so good that when you're listening to it or when you're singing along in the car, you forget the plot of the story. It's like you're singing along to the song If I Could Tell Her, which is a lovely song. It's so cute, and you're like, oh, if I could tell her all the nice things. And then you're like, wait, he's saying essentially a love song to this girl, but she thinks that it's words that her brother said about her. And at the end, like, she did go to kiss him, and she is the one who very much like has her own agency in her own story, which I liked. Zoe was the first one to say like, I like you, and she was the one who like invited him round and stuff. And so that felt less manipulative than it does in the show when like he kisses her. But still, that's like a messed up storyline. But we all forget it because the songs are so nice. So as I say, they did cut a couple of songs from the film. They cut Good For You, Disappear, To Break in a Glove. They added in a new song for Alana, which was called like Anonymous Ones or something. To be honest, I didn't really like it. It felt like the writers said, oh, people with anxiety and depression love this show, so we're gonna give them a song that's all about having anxiety and depression. And I didn't like that. And I think that getting rid of Disappear is such a shame, because I don't feel like we learnt enough about Connor to remember how bad what Evan's doing is. I feel like we just kind of forget about Connor, which is a shame. I think that maybe if we saw more of him, then we would remember that Evan is doing something terrible. Keeping on Alana, they changed the character of Alana quite a lot, and I wasn't keen on it personally. Even though Alana had a solo, I felt less connected to her as a character. Alana, I would say, is normally a character who is quite over the top, quite like over eager. Audiences kind of get annoyed by her, but we also see that it's like a cover for her own anxiety and for her like not fitting in and trying to be liked. act. Whereas in the film, like, maybe she doesn't have loads of friends around her and stuff. Like, her first major introduction, she's like, oh yeah, what medication are you on? Because I have anxiety too. Whereas I feel like in the show, it's kind of developed and discovered a little bit more, whereas Alana in the film is very much like, hi, here I am, like, here's my story. You don't move along with her. It all feels kind of surface with Alana in the film. Can I also just say, imagine having Isaac Cole Powell in your movie musical and not utilizing him. You had him sing one line? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No. I would say that it is hard not to compare movie musicals when so many are coming out at the moment. We've got Everybody's Talking About Jamie, Cinderella, Dear Evan Hansen, and obviously West Side Story is coming out. But like Jamie, for example, there's a lot of ballads in Everybody's Talking About Jamie, and I think that the way that it really works in the Jamie film, when someone's singing like a long ballady solo, we're either seeing what the character's seeing in their head, or we're seeing other plot points that move the story along. I don't really feel like in the Jamie movie you get anything that's like, I'm just gonna stand and sing a song. Whereas in Dear Evan Hansen, there was quite a few where it was like, we're just gonna sit and watch somebody sing this song. It's just different camera angles of them singing, or we had a couple of flashbacks, one that we saw about 30 times. Why did we see him running down that little path and climbing that tree so many times? I was like, I've seen this about 30 times in this film. I don't need to see him running across that little bridge again. So when Evan has finally kind of admitted what he did, he starts trying to make amends. And even then, we see him find a video of Connor singing an original song to his therapy group, and Evan shares it again. And like, I kind of understand sharing it with his parent, but he shares it with Alana and Jared, and I just don't understand why. It didn't feel quite right to me, and I feel like that was added in to be like, oh, look, he's doing such a good thing. I do think it's good that Connor's mom was like, I'm not going to tell everybody what you did because I don't want you to do something stupid. Because we know that Evan has already attempted suicide before. I think when some people are like, you know, he needed to face more repercussions for what he did. What do you want? He didn't get into college. He didn't get the girl. What, you want him to kill himself? Because he was already at his rock bottom in doing all the lies and things, so like he can only really go up from there. Overall, I didn't hate the film. I don't think it was that bad that it was funny, which a lot of people were saying. I don't think I would probably watch it again. It's just a bit boring. Like, I just didn't really care. But I do need to talk about the elephant in the room, Ben Platt in this role. And I'm sorry to say, I think he's a great performer, but I do think that he is the reason why this film didn't work. And I do also think that he is the reason why people are so against it. Okay, so I've spoken about this before, but obviously Evan does some terrible things and he gets wrapped up in a lie, regardless of how bad that lie is. But I don't think he's an evil character. In the film and in the show, he does try at first to say, no, it's not the case, you know, you've got it wrong. And I do think that in the real world, people do make mistakes, and when you add into that a teenager who isn't very well socialized, all the different contributing factors come together. I get it. I don't think it's right, but I get it. The thing is that with Ben Platt looking so much older than a teenager, we as an audience can't empathize with him because we are viewing him through the lens of an adult. And yes, adults play teenagers all the time, but this is a film where you need the actor to look young, not fully developed, and also when there are other adults playing teenagers in the film who do look young and he looks so much older than them. Like when he's with Zoe, you don't believe them as a couple. His hair. Listen, I know it's not a wig, I know that's his real hair, and I'm not trying to be mean about his natural hair, but why did they style it that way? Ben didn't have his hair like that in the show. No Evan Hansen has their hair like that. Why did they do it like an old lady's perm? I just don't understand that choice, and it did make him look so much older. I don't know if it's maybe like he had some wrinkles on his forehead and they're trying to cover it. It was such a bad bad choice. Okay, so lots of people have been discussing how Ben originated the role, and when The Prom came out, people were saying, why wasn't Caitlin Kinnunen cast as Emma? Especially when people have really developed a role from its conception. However, I do think that it has to be a case-by-case basis. When you're watching Ben Platt in this movie, yes, he has screen experience, but he's acting like he's on stage. And I've said this before to friends about The Politician. He was very over the top in The Politician. The thing is, I think it worked. You know, it was a Ryan Murphy show. It was very kind of quirky. It was very over the top, and it worked. But this movie is trying so hard to be real and realistic and all about truth. And you're watching him and you're thinking, wow, you're really acting. I was thinking like, wow, you're really putting a lot into this. You know, you're really putting it all out there. And then you'd look at him next to Caitlin Dever as Zoe, and you're like, oh, you are acting though. She is the character. I believe everything about her right now. Whereas you look like Tony Award-winning Ben Platt, who played Dear Evan Hansen on stage, giving that same performance in this film. And that's the difference. I do think that he has a lovely voice. I think that he is a good actor. I did love some of the small vocal changes that he did to the role to make it slightly different from the original cast recording. I mean, his voice is faultless. Like, it's gorgeous. Do you know what I mean? I could listen to him sing those songs all day long. The reason why I think people are so against this film and why it didn't work is because we all see Ben Platt and Evan Hansen as kind of the same, and I think Ben does as well. I think Ben was like, I created this role, so much of me is in it, I won a Tony for this performance. I think that to bring his performance to screen, he did very little really. He hunched over a bit more and quivered his lip a bit more, but generally it's a pretty similar portrayal that he gave in the show. But like, lots of people after the trailer came out were saying that he's too old and like saying his hair was bad and whatever, and saying it was all nepotism. And he said, you know, without me this film wouldn't have been made, kind of an FU to everyone who doesn't like him in the role. And I think his perceived arrogance around him being cast, people are also translating that to the character of Evan, and I think people are watching Ben Platt play Evan but seeing the perceived arrogance of Ben Platt onto Evan, and therefore seeing Evan as a kind of evil character, as Machiavellian and very calculating, whereas they are so different. The Ben Platt who said this film wouldn't be made without me is a very different person to a 17-year-old boy with anxiety who got caught up in a lie. I do think that is the problem with having a performer who is so ingrained in a character. Ben saying that the film wouldn't be made without him is potentially true. I mean, his dad is a lead producer and he bought the rights so that Ben could play the role before he aged out of it, which by the way, Mark Platt, he already did. But I do think him saying the film wouldn't be made without him makes it again like he's bigger than the show. Yeah, maybe if Ben wasn't in it, his dad wouldn't have been so eager to buy the expensive movie rights and make it, but somebody else might have done if they liked the story enough. In my opinion, they should have had an unknown actor. They got an unknown with Max Harwood in Everybody's Talking About Jamie, and in doing that, we're able to watch the film with fresh eyes and go on the story with this new Jamie. We're able to lose ourselves in that story, whereas watching this film, I'm watching Ben Platt, the 27-year-old who thinks that without him this musical would never be made into a film, as Evan Hansen. I'm not seeing Evan, the real character. Okay, one last thing, because I know this has been a long video, but can we talk very quickly about the social media marketing? Okay, this film is about people with depression and anxiety, heavy themes, and yet I went on TikTok this morning and I saw somebody doing an ad for this movie, like a paid brand deal, where they danced to Sincerely Me, saying, dear, if it was me, dear Amy, today's gonna be a great day and here's why. And they're dancing to Sincerely Me, saying all the great things about life. And I'm like, listen, that song, certified bop, but it is a made-up story that a boy made about someone who committed suicide. And again, for a film that is so much about like the truth, the real emotions, reality, and then you've got ads of TikTok dancers doing like the Sincerely Me dance challenge. Ooh, it's a little off for me. Anyway, I know this topic is very divisive. I know that people will disagree with me. That's fine. Just please be respectful to me, to each other in the comments, to people in the show, to people in the film. Listen, at the end of the day, my opinion means nothing. I'm just an audience member throwing in my 2 cents. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you again soon. Love you lots. Bye.